In this episode, I'm joined by Desmond Dixon from Remote Sales Manager. We're going to discuss how he made the transition from chemical engineer into sales, which ultimately led him into starting his own business. He now runs a multiple 8-figure agency whilst he travels the world full time. I'll see you in the episode. Desmond, thank you so much for joining me. Would love to just kick things off by just asking for a brief background on yourself and what Remote Sales Manager is.
Yeah. So my name is Desmond Dixon. I'm a professional speaker, and I travel the world and build sales teams. And right now, Remote Sales Manager is a agency focused on fractional sales leadership, and that's where we train, manage, and actually recruit the salespeople, for founders all around the world. So it's a cool gig, man.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing that for?
Now going on 3 years, but really it's kind of crazy because the business changed a lot over 3 years. I'll say this current version of it's been around for about a year now, a year and some change. Before, I was just doing consulting and like recruiting for free until I found out people were paying for it. And I was like, because I'm a sales guy, I didn't know about recruiters. And I was like, so I got into the recruiting game and added another revenue stream that way as well.
Got you. Very cool. And what type of clients do you work with?
So really high ticket, so like professional services, so like other agencies, and then technology. So that seems to be like my sweet spot. So there's usually a 25 to 75K like LTV, so lifetime value, because that's when you need a salesperson, right, to have that kind of conversation with someone. So I try to stay away from e-commerce, not too many coaches unless they're like have established revenue and established systems, because trying to build a systems from scratch can be really tough for solopreneurs, right? So that's kind of our sweet spots, the more professional services and technology kind of people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, very cool. Well, as you know, on this podcast, we like to dive, rewind the wheel with this and rewind the clock and focus on how you made that jump into entrepreneurship. So can you kind of talk us through your journey into starting this business? Is this your first venture?
Yeah, so this is my second venture technically. So I was a chemical engineer in college, decided I didn't want to do that after internships and went into sales. My first sales job, I failed miserably. It was door-to-door sales one summer. Got fired, knocked on 1,000 doors. And then I went all in because I was like, I was this engineering guy trying to do sales. I was like, what am I missing? I can't solve the equation, right? So I was so fascinated with this. So I went all in and studied it and got obsessed with helping other people win. And that was my secret to my sales success. So I did millions in corporate. And then, I was like, do I want to stay in corporate? Heck no. I was like, I don't like where my life is going. I'm making all this money, but I'm unhappy because I'm answering to these people that, I hate to say, I don't want to bash, but I was like, I don't want to answer to these people and I don't want to be where they are. So I left, right? So I left and began a company called Joylistic, and I grew that into 3 different cities. It was a holistic wellness into corporations. That business failed when the pandemic happened because there are no more events, there are no more massages, there are no more in-person things. So the business just stopped overnight. And people were just asking me, hey, how did you grow so fast? Because I was a sales guy. All I did was just pick up a phone and cold call. That's how I got in, cold call people. Yep. And gave some game for free. And it was people kept introducing me to people. And there I'm just doing high-ticket sales again and consulting, right? I just kind of stumbled into consulting. And, just turned it into a business from there. Yeah.
I always say that sales leaders, those with a sales background, find it easier to jump into entrepreneurship because I think a lot of aspects of being in a sales role, you kind of have to rely on yourself anyway. There's a lot of similarities between running your own business and being able to scale and grow that business and what you have to do with sales. I always talk about, my story with my previous company where I switched to a 100% commission only role. And in order to make 6 figures, I knew I had to sell over $2 million worth of services. In my head, I'm thinking, if I can sell $2 million worth of services, why can't I do that for myself? And that really gave me kind of the inspiration to say, hey, this is not as hard as I think people are painting the picture to be. Maybe I should make that jump. How important is that sales background for you when you thought about making that leap out of corporate to start that first business?
So I think it helps with moving the money needle and actually doing business, because I think that I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs. I've enrolled a bunch of different entrepreneurs to different high ticket programs and things like that. And at the end of the day, like, you gotta convert, right? Like, that if you don't convert, you don't have a business. But one thing I learned though in business, though, you have all these other things that as a salesperson you're not like, you don't know, right? Like operations, customer success. Like, dude, I'm a sales guy. I'm not an ops person, right? I hate it. So learning the operation side has been the biggest learning curve for me personally. But the sales thing has definitely helped me tremendously. And I think every entrepreneur, if you're thinking about starting a business, you got to learn sales right away.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do agree that we've actually just brought on a project management consultant to help with that, because we're growing and growing and growing, and I'm sitting there thinking, I can't spend all day in ClickUp creating tasks. Like, this is a lot. Like, I need some help with this, and I know that's my weakness. And that was an issue we ran into when we first started. Is I knew I could close deals. We started closing all these deals, whereas with the software development industry, or the business, when I was doing that, somebody else had to fill them. I just kept closing them over and over again. Whereas when it's your own business, you've got to do the stuff on the backside as well. And that was an interesting learning curve for me, kind of going from trying to sell as much as possible to then trying to focus really on just quality and what I could really manage myself. And, I made that mistake growing very, very quickly and kind of had to dial it back. And now we have a much more structured approach with doing that.
Oh, yeah, man. Like, and it's all about, like, what are you trying to scale to? Because you're a salesperson, you just start selling. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, I don't have enough time for all of this, right? Like, so you have to, like, it's a lot of, I think early on, a lot of experimenting to figure out what's the perfect glove that's repeatable, but also you don't leave any money on the table either as well. I think it's a fun dance, man. I think it's definitely fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I do want to touch on, because I think it's going to be very applicable to a lot of people that are listening right now, is you're in the corporate world, you're not enjoying it. You don't like answering to whoever. You're making a lot of money, though, and then you want to make that jump into entrepreneurship. How important is the financial benefit from being in corporate? Like, how did you make that decision in your head? Did you say, hey, I'm going to make the same amount I'm making, and if you're willing to share, we'd love you to share as well. Like, hey, I'm making X amount now, but I know if I make a jump into entrepreneurship, all I need to do is make this to keep my head above water? Or was it a case of, I'm going to become an entrepreneur because I want to make even more money?
Okay, so for me to jump, it was more for I'm betting on myself, because I got to this point. I was making, I was having like 15K months, bro, right? 14K months. I was in the middle of signing a $2 million deal for a big facility down in Louisiana. And I was about to, I'm like in the middle of this deal, and I'm like, if I get this commission check, there's no way in hell I'm leaving. Like, it's like I am super cuffed, right? Because usually the next deal, then there's going to be another deal right after that, right?
There's always another
deal. It's
always
one more.
That's the hard part, yeah.
Yes. So I was like, yo, I bet on myself. I'm this chemical engineer that did nothing about sales. I built this multi-million-dollar book of business. Why can't I do it again? Right? That's the question I told myself. And like, walking away was, I didn't even walk to anything. I didn't even know if I was going to get into entrepreneurship. I literally walked away, moved to California, because I was living in Denver at the time. And I was just like doing a lot of personal development of like, okay, what do I want to do? And I just started doing stuff that I was interested in, which at the time was meditation and like yoga and all these different things. I started, let me bring this to the office. So I just did it as a lifestyle business and just like trusted myself. I think that's the lesson in this. It's like, just trust yourself, because you're an intelligent human being. Like, you have skills. You will literally find a way to not only keep the lights on, but thrive and grow as a human being, right? If you trust yourself, I think is the lesson in this.
I will say sometimes it does take your back against the wall for you to actually take action. And I found that as well. It's a lot of people that I'm consulting with right now have been laid off, and they're going, I don't want to go and get another job. I don't want to have somebody else control my financial independence or my financial situation, so now I'm going to start my own marketing agency. Now I'm going to go and start my own business. So I will say, having that back against the wall mentality, it does allow you to take action. But that being said, not everybody that goes and starts a business is going to go from making 150 grand a year, 200 grand a year in corporate to replacing that in the first year. How much did you make in that first year? And was that enough to survive? Were you thriving? Like, what was kind of that mentality as you were getting into starting that business in the first 12 months of entrepreneurship?
Man, dude, I think my first year, I'm thinking about my taxes, right? I think I was like at like 60 grand, maybe, like something like, I wasn't making as much money at first, but I had so much more freedom. I was living where I wanted to live. I was doing what I wanted to do. And then obviously your income just increases year over year, right? Like, I mean, now I think, we're doing pretty good, man. Like, I just had my biggest month. Right, still this month. It's the whole month, but I have my biggest month this month since I left corporate, right? Yeah, man. But it's so much more than the money too, though. Yes, I'm making money. It's great. Like I could see the bags getting filled and buying more investments and all the things. But it's the freedom part, right? Like I enjoy the part that I'm traveling the world. I can take off whenever I want. I can scale, or I can fire clients if I want. I have the freedom. If I don't like working with this person, I have the ability to walk away, right? So I think the freedom part is the more important, because the money is just money, man. It's an ends to a mean, and it creates, obviously, you have bills to pay, but I think the freedom part is the part I enjoy most out of corporate.
Yeah, and I will say with the money side of it, once you hit a certain amount, to me, it's diminishing returns. And that's what I found in terms of our monthly revenue. Like, once we hit 20 to 25 grand a month as an agency, and again with a small team, it became diminishing returns to continue to push past that. And that was a mistake. We grew very, very quickly. We grew to 40, 50,000 a month in the first 6 months. And I remember looking at it and thinking, I'm still working 100 hours a week. Why am I doing this? What's the point? This is not the goal of why I wanted to start an agency. So I do think there is the diminishing returns effect that you have with the money, and for those listening, like, it's almost that you have to get there to figure that out. Like, everybody, I didn't believe it when I was first doing it. Like, you have to almost get to that point and figure it out. But the freedom that having your own business, especially when you work remote, and it sounds crazy now that, marketing and sales roles aren't all remote, but there are companies that are mandating going to an office to be a digital marketer, or to be a sales leader, to be an SDR, to be an account executive. Like, there are companies that are still mandating that. And it's interesting on this podcast because I'm in an RV in Myrtle Beach right now, recording this while traveling around the country. And where are you at the moment?
Oh man, I'm in Bangkok, Thailand for the quarter, man. Traveling the region, man. So Bangkok's my base, and I'm going down to the islands, going to Japan, going back to Europe in the spring, travel around Europe for the next 6-8 months between spring and summer. All from my laptop. It's great.
And are you working the whole time?
Oh yeah. I'm like getting more savage with my time. When I first started traveling, I mean, I was taking a lot of calls because that was just the nature of the beast. But now I'm like taking almost, when I say, Chris, man, I am, if you're not giving me money, or like you don't pay me or the agency, like there's no way I won't even take calls anymore. Because I'm like, I want to focus on traveling, right? Like that's my motto for the next 6 to 8 months. So, yeah, man, I wouldn't trade it for the world, man, at all.
Yeah, no, it's amazing watching your journey. You have a little bit more freedom than I would say I'm at the moment. I'm a little envious. Just I have a dog, so I can't leave and go international right now. It's the biggest problem. We always joke about it, my wife and I. Say, hey, like, we'd be sat in Bali right now if it wasn't for this bloody dog. Like, she sat there, like, we've literally we've converted an RV to be able to travel around and obviously have her with us. Like, she's part of the family. Like, we're all that millennial, no kids with a dog. We're in that phase right now. So for us, like, that allows us to travel around, and that was our goal, is to travel around the US more and to have more of that freedom. Where are you looking to go into Europe? Like, what are the plans for the future?
Yeah, man. So, so Europe is the next stop for us. So, like, Spain, we're going to apply for residency there because I have a visa, just so we can travel to Schengen when we want. Albania, then Switzerland, Iceland, UK, all those things were booked. And then I'm pretty much booked out till October. And then I'm going to decide to go to Latin America because Mexico's on my list of places. Peru and Antarctica is also on my list of places. Or do we go back to Bali? Because I love Bali too, man. But yeah, man, with the agency, like, I learned that, like, we don't need to scale so fast, so hard. Like, it's cool. Like, we can make $700 grand a year, and like, that's okay. Like, and spin off the more scalable stuff, which is like a recruiting agency. So like, that's kind of my plan right now. I have a team of people, sales guys and an operations person that's just going to help me place people. But I'm like, yo, I'm gonna keep my consulting company, my fractional leadership stuff, and then just spin out my recruiting business, and then let that be its own standalone thing, and then focus more on public speaking. My time, right? Getting more on stages, paid speaking opportunities. So that's kind of my plan for the year: is speak more, travel more, work less, build another subsidiary technically with the team. So that's my move.
And are you finding when you're going to these individual locations that are you meeting with clients? Are you doing speaking engagements there already? Or is this purely, hey, I want to go to Iceland, so we're going to go to Iceland?
Yeah, a lot of it's like, I want to go to this place, so it's on my bucket list, so I'm going to go there. Right? And I just plan around that. I did have a speaking engagement last year that I went to, that I traveled planning around. That was in Portugal. But yeah, I'm just going to fly anywhere where it's a cool speaking opportunity. I'll fly. It doesn't matter. It's nothing but a plane ticket, man. Right? It's a sky bus. Yeah.
And when you get to these locations, are you renting Airbnbs? Are you staying in hotels? Like, what do you do for kind of accommodation?
So at first I was doing a lot of Airbnbs. Like right now I'm in an Airbnb. I do like long bookings. So I'll pick a place for 2 to 4 months, and then I travel the region. So I'm here in Bangkok for 3 months. Then I'm traveling to all these different places from Bangkok because they have a major airport. But I recently discovered bookings.com. Like, and I love it because, like, for instance, I just booked a trip for tomorrow. Like last night, I was like, oh, I want to go to the beach. So we're going to go to the beach tomorrow. And I found something on booking.com for like 75% off at this resort. And I'm like, yo, it's a no-brainer, right? It's less than the ticket to get there, right? Yeah. So I got hip to booking.com, which is pretty great. And I try to avoid hotels long stay unless I'm like laying over somewhere, just because like the quality and the price, just I prefer an Airbnb because you get more space, and you know what I mean. But the hotels in Bali are dope. Like, I think Bali is a place where if I was going for 10 days, I'll go there, stay in a hotel or resort. But it just depends on the region, man, for sure, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And as you've gone through this, obviously, entrepreneurship journey, you know, I always say it's not all sunshines and rainbows. And maybe it is with your experience. For me, it's not always been, you know, this amazing experience. And, you know, I think there is the tendency to make things look a lot better than they are. Obviously, traveling around the world, I mean, it sounds amazing. Other issues that you found, are there any, I guess, big roadblocks that you've run into that you'd be willing to share kind of as you've, you know, launched this kind of the first 2 years of running your own agency and consulting firm?
When we went from like 60K, 70K to like 120K, like the next year, 120, 140K, and now we're doing like pretty good numbers. When I framed my first 6-figure year was tough because of people, like managing other people within the organization and like coming up with proper systems to make sure things are getting done. And then also like, am I hiring the right people to move the money needle or like to get things done? Like, do you just start I was hiring people to do stuff and I didn't need them to do those things. In my mind, I thought I needed those things, but I didn't need that. I didn't need to hire that person to do that task. So I think like just understanding managing people in different places. And so now I have like incentive structures where I pay my subcontractors and my people based upon like results that they provide, right? It is my video editor. He gets paid per video. Like I pay people like per their performance, not like this fixed retainer, so to speak, right? And that was a big lesson for me for cash flow. So I can turn the dials up or down, right? So I can make sure I'm at a 50% profit or more every month, right? So I think that was my biggest lesson because I almost failed, like because I grew too fast and I lost a big client, like all my eggs in one basket, and I was like, man, the stock market was going down, my housing, like I had to like sell my house because my tenants wasn't paying rent, and so that was a big lesson for me for cash flow and then diversified revenue. So now we have 3 different revenue streams, but back then I only had one consulting retainer. Now I have technically 4 because I have a performance bonus too where we get 50K for hitting certain milestones, right? So just diversifying revenue and then attaching like my subcontractors' payments to tangible milestones and performances. I think that was the biggest lessons I learned by far.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to anyone listening, whether you're looking at starting a marketing agency, a sales agency, whatever that is, when you directly attach the performance of the subcontractors to the results and therefore also tie that into how you charge clients, what you alluded to there with dialing up and dialing down, that means if I'm charging $5,000 a month and I'm paying a subcontractor $1,000 a month, if I lose that client, I just take one client off that subcontractor. They may manage 3 or 4 clients for us, but it allows you to be very, very flexible with that, and that allows you to stay in control. The problem is when you have someone that's $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month that you're paying, that puts you in a real sticky situation. Like you say, if you do lose a big client and suddenly you have to still pay them, or you have to discuss, hey, we need to reduce your hours, like that's not a fun conversation obviously to have with individuals. So anytime you can tie them together, that allows you to stay in control and also keeps you very, very lean, and you then keep this very high profit margin, which in the agency game, especially when you get to the stage where we're at right now, where I don't manage all of the individual ad accounts myself, I have guys underneath me doing that, I do more of the client management and more of the client kind of face-to-face with the clients. That allows you to take more of a step out of the business as well and still regain that control and profitability.
Yeah, I haven't figured out getting away from the client-facing part yet, but when you figure that out, let me know, because it's like...
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
I'm trying to figure that out, right? That's what I'm trying to do the recruiting side. I'm like, okay, no more management contracts. It's 2 more recruiting, because it could be draining, right, over time. That's another thing I think was an honest conversation to have.
Yeah, no, it absolutely can be. You can burn out with just with client interfacing, because if you for us, we have Series A, we have Series C clients. We've got clients that are obviously a lot more demanding and a lot more expensive than some of our smaller clients, where we've kind of got it across the board. But you find that you can really spend a lot of time with one client, but if that client isn't the one that's paying the large retainer, that's where you need to have those conversations either with the client or internally say, hey, listen, this is not a profitable client for us right now. We need to figure out what we're going to do with this. And do we fire a client? Do we let them go? Like we've had those situations and those conversations with clients, and normally it actually goes very well. They're usually very receptive to it. But I've had it's not a fun conversation to have with clients.
Yeah, I do a soft exit. This is a whole episode by itself. It's like how to fire clients. I think like leaving them better, how you found them is important. So like I would say, hey, this is what the transition is going to look like, but we're going to end the relationship. But I don't leave like say, hey, you're done. But it's like more about just transitioning out. And now you open up all this energy and space to get more of those dream clients, right? I did that last week. I think last month we fired like 2 clients. And then we got 2 new clients that paid us 3 times more money, right? So like within like 2 weeks, right, of each other. So I think it's important energetically to not be so attached when you leave your job, and you build your book of business, and you feel like if you have a client that you want to get rid of, I think it's okay to like gracefully exit to give yourself space to get that, replace someone else there, right, to pay you more money.
And you'll find as you grow an agency as well, your clients, they evolve, they change. Who you get when you first start out typically are not going to be the clients that are going to be with you in 2-3 years time. Like they start to, as you get more of a reputation, you can attract larger clients, you can attract more enterprise sized clients, you can attract just clients with bigger budgets, or in the marketing side. So that is constantly going to evolve. So it's very natural to move out of certain clients and basically to progress yourself, because your retainers typically are going to increase as well. And you can basically start to price out some of the earlier clients as you figure it out and get a lot better, really. And that's where, again, when people are looking at starting their first agency and they say, hey, I'm going to charge this much, I'm like, before you start, increase your prices. Just get something so you're at least comparable with the companies that are like really starting out. Like you don't need to charge $1,000 a month. Like go ahead in there, charge $3,000-$4,000 a month. Like get some kind of perceived value with that, and then you can start to increase your retainers from there. Because across the spectrum, there are marketing agencies that, and I know agencies that to manage LinkedIn ads, for instance, there are agencies that are going to charge $500 a month. And there are agencies that are going to charge $30,000 a month, and it is everyone in between. So it's about figuring out where you want to kind of fit into that, and pricing it. Like you're saying, there's a whole other episode that we could get into, but it's something that really allows you to have that perceived value as you start to increase the quality of the services that you offer as well. Price is very, very directly correlated to that.
Yeah, we could go. I love pricing, man. You're like if. Man, this is so, I get so excited to talk about this because it's like sales, right? I think being cheap is the worst decision you can ever make. Like, yeah. Don't ever be cheap, because you're literally going to like regret it. You're going to tie up all your time, and and usually the clients that pay cheap are not the best. They're going to expect the most of your time, right? Like my favorite clients right now are the ones that I'm like 75K contracts, and we only talk like every 2 weeks, right? Because they're just like, we're just doing our thing. Like we're working, we talk in the Slack. Like we don't need to talk, but the clients I did like cheaper stuff with almost every day, like wants to jump on a call, right? So I think that's also a lesson. So don't be afraid to charge. And then I think performance contracts are fire. I would drop some fire for your audience here, man. So like whatever your retainer is, cool. Add on a performance clause where it's like if you hit a certain milestone, you get a bonus. That's a great negotiation tool because you can always take it off the table to get things started today, right? Hey, we can start this trial for 3 to 6 months, not do a 12-month contract, and then renegotiate the bonus, right? So that's my little. We could do another episode on this, but that's a little game that I do to close deals at a high level.
Yeah, I think I think the bonus, the incentive structure in there definitely is especially on a marketing. Like, if you have a client that's going to spend a big budget, like we've done hybrid retainer plus commission structures, and that's been quite interesting as well. So we'll discount our retainer a little bit, and then we get commission on any of the deals. Tracking it on some of the clients can be a little bit difficult. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time to do that, and a lot of it is honestly just on kind of the honor system that we have with our clients. But we basically make sure that our costs effectively are covered by the retainer, and then we all have the upside once they do well, and that allows them to obviously spend more into marketing. It basically aligns both of our incentives, and we've done that and had a lot of success with those campaigns in the past to be able to continue to scale that. And the final thing I'll say on pricing is, what I found is that there are basically 3 buckets when it comes to pricing. So you have your lower bucket. If you fall into that lower bucket, your client is paying you to tell you what to do. So when you charge, and you have to think about this when you think about what you're going to charge. So if you're cheap, a client is hiring you and then they expect to tell you what to do. Then there's a second bucket, which is a medium price. Then the client is hiring you and they're expecting you to know what to do. And then there's the higher tier, and that's when a client pays you because they want to be told what to do and they're going to leave you alone. And that's the 3 different tiers. And when you stay in the second and third tiers, and it varies on industry, it varies on the type of clients and the work that you're going to be doing, but when you stay in those second and specifically the third tier, those are the best clients to work with. They're so much easier to work with because they are hiring you for your expertise, not because of the fact you can press buttons on a keyboard, which is what clients are expecting in that first tier. And I don't know what the inflection point is with specific industries. It does change, but if you can stay out of that first tier, you're going to have a much more scalable and profitable energy because you're not going to sink time into clients that expect the world, but they only want to spend, $500, $1,000 a month, which when a lot of marketers are starting out, I have marketers like, hey, I'm going to run an agency, we're going to charge $1,000 a month to manage ad accounts. But what are you doing? That's such a headache. Like, it's not worth it. It's, but I only want to do it on the side. It doesn't matter. You need to get out of that cheap tier because it's so hard to, once you've made a name in the cheap tier, it's so hard to get your clients to pay more or to go and find more clients because you've got this reputation now of being cheap.
Yeah. I would say nothing less than 2K a month, personally. Like, I know you talk about 4 or 5K a month, which I think is valid because you're running like full cycle.
We got clients on 15, 20K a month now. Like, that's as we've progressed, like, it's the size of the clients, like, it all progresses up from there. Starting off, 3 to 5K is like smallest clients will do now in terms of our retainer fees, but we also offer a lot more things. We have graphic design, we have video editing, we have project management. Like, we offer a lot more than just a one-man marketing show right now. But again, if you're a one-man show, 25 to 3.5 grand is probably the minimum that I'd look to, and that's a side gig. That's on top of your full-time job, and that's working with a couple of small clients. I wouldn't go less than that. Yeah,
and now, in ad spend too, probably if you do 2K plus percentage of ad spend. All right. Yeah, we're getting deep right here into specifics, but I love talking about pricing and sales, man. We could do this all day.
We're going to take a quick moment to pause this episode and thank our sponsors. First, we've got the first sponsor, which is True Classic, the clothing company. As you all know from all of my content, I've been wearing True Classic for the last 18 months, and it truly is the staple of my wardrobe. What I find is that a lot of the clothes that I buy previously were all too baggy. They didn't fit right. The best part about True Classic, not only is it incredibly soft, but for those of you that have broader shoulders, that have larger arms, who just tend to be a little bit more athletic, the fit is absolutely amazing. It makes you look great. And a lot of people call these really the push-up bras for guys. I can tell you, when you wear these t-shirts, you look good. If you're interested in trying True Classic, there's going to be a link in the description of this episode. There's going to be my personal link, or you can go to trueclassics.com/thechrisroach. Go ahead, check out the store. I guarantee you, you will not be sorry if you start wearing True Classics. If you do end up purchasing them, please let me know what you purchased. I'm curious to hear feedback. Moving on to our second sponsor, which is the Independent Marketer, which is an online course and community that I've created to be able to teach digital marketers how to go out and break out of the golden handcuffs and ultimately launch either their own freelancing career or build it into their own digital marketing agency. In the description is going to be a link to that course. And as a thank you for listening to this podcast, there's going to be a special $100 discount on that course as well. If you do have any questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me directly or shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Back to the episode.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears then, because I know we've gone down this rabbit hole now. So let's switch gears in terms of your team. You know, do you travel by yourself? Do you travel with team members? Do you travel with significant others? Kind of what's the format right now when you are traveling around and going to these different locations?
It's just me and my girl, man. We've been doing it for I think 16 months now, 18 months, something like that. I don't even know how long.
And is your team then all US based, international, spread out?
International, man, all over the world, all different time zones. Some in Texas, a guy in Texas, I have a guy in South Carolina, someone in Croatia. I have somebody in Bangladesh, right? Actually, two people in Bangladesh that do the $2 an hour task, right? $3 an hour task, that busy work that needs to be done. Yeah, man. So all over the world, man. All different time zones.
So one of the things that I hear a lot from marketers that are a little bit hesitant to go out on their own, besides from obviously imposter syndrome, which seems to be a huge issue for a lot of marketers, but the loneliness of I want to work with it. I like going into the office. I like being able to work with people, like going out on my own, especially when you first start. A lot of it's you. Like, you don't have a team when you first start off typically, so it's just you that's doing it. Did you ever hit that kind of position where you got lonely? Did you ever hit a time where you thought about maybe going back to corporate?
No, because I've always been a lone wolf, because when I was in sales, you're on an island. So I've always been on an island, so it wasn't a big deal for me. But at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, you should be talking to people every day anyway. You don't feel lonely because you're supposed to be like talking to people like every day. You don't sit in a dark room and scheme all day. You go out and you reach out to people through email, you cold call, you DMs, you network, you go to events, you go to coffee shops, you go to co-working spaces, no matter what city you're in, to maybe meet and mingle, go to different events. So like, just because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean you're by yourself. You still should be actively in front of people, because that's the only way you're going to get business, is talking to people. No one's not going to, if you're first starting out, going to say, call you up, Brandon, and be like, hey, I want to buy your services that I didn't know existed yet, because I didn't know that you lost your job, because you know what I mean? Like, you got to go out and be active, proactive as an entrepreneur. So there's no loneliness in the beginning, I know for sure. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Again, it's not something I particularly have suffered with or struggled with, is kind of the loneliness side. And again, I obviously travel with my wife and our dog, and that to me, that's why I do what we do. I started Catalyst to provide freedom for us. Casey now actually works full time for Catalyst, which was a huge milestone for me to be able to have her leave the school that she was in. She didn't like it, she wasn't enjoying it, and she was able to then leave and come and work for Catalyst. That was a big milestone for us to now both be completely dependent on Catalyst, and that's something that a lot of people are going, well, aren't you scared? Doesn't that seem risky? Well, no, because now we control everything. There's no one. You can't fire us now. I can't fire myself. Like, well, I guess I technically could, but there's no, there's no way that there's this massive go from making this to zero, which is what happened to me previously, and that pissed me off. That really irritated me when I realized that, hey, I've gone from making six figures to making nothing in a weekend. Friday I was making six figures. By Monday I was making nothing. Like that, I remember having that conversation with my former CEO. I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? And that obviously led me to starting Catalyst. Can you talk a little bit about the risk and perhaps stability of entrepreneurship versus having that in-house job?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, like, maybe this sounds counterintuitive, but not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. Maybe it depends on their personality and their goals in life. But if you're a person that like obviously wants to grow, challenge yourself, have a little bit more freedom to give your time, right? Like just because you go to entrepreneurship, you might work more hours in the beginning, but you get to decide what those hours get to be and not being dictated from someone else. And so I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of it when it comes down to an entrepreneurship is like having the guts to like bet on yourself and then understanding that you might fail. And if you do fail, it's okay. Usually if you're very good at your job, you're very good at a skill, you will be okay. Like my backup plan was like, oh, if I fail, I'll just go be a sales guy and go make 150 grand, $250,000 a year. Or if I fail at sales, I'll go be a chemical engineer. Okay, that's my backup. I'll call my old professors like, yo, I need a job. Call somebody. I need a job. Right? So like you have something to fall upon. Like just go all in. You have nothing, like you have no risk really. The risk is like not, I think the biggest risk is like knowing that you want to do something and then like sitting on that and letting it fester and wondering why did I not do that? Right? At least if you go and do it, if you succeed, knock it out the park, wow, life will never be the same. If you fail, it's okay. Maybe you learn something and start something different because you learned something, or maybe you just go get a job for a year and say, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna try again in another year, right? But I think if you have the thought of doing it, you got to do it, man. I don't want to give you too much advice. Like you obviously do your own thing, but just don't sit on it because you'll literally hate yourself in 5 or 10 years when you can't leave because you have responsibilities and you have
It's the regret. I think that's a key part of this. Is the regret is one of the biggest factors that people talk about when they look back on it, and it's like, hey, like I regretted not doing this earlier. I've had conversations with Mark at the start of their agency since they got laid off in the last 6 months, and like I wanted to do this for 10 years, but it took me getting laid off to actually go and do that. And it's like there's a lot of people in that situation right now, and the caveat that I will say to that is you don't have to quit and go cold turkey. You don't have to start and just decide, right, I'm going to go run an agency, so I'm going to quit my day job. You can build this up. There's levels to this shit. Like, you don't have to just go all into it. You can get 1 or 2 clients, get to the point where maybe you're making 3 to 5K a month retainer. Now my mortgage, my health insurance, my bills, that's covered. So if I want to make the jump now, instead of working 40 hours a week at my job and 10 hours a week on the side, now I can work 10 hours on my job to cover my expenses, and I've just got another 40 hours a week back to decide if I want to scale this, if I want to grow this, like whatever the situation is. That to me is how you make that logical jump into starting this. But if you've just been laid off, or you've been let go, or you've just quit because you're in burnout, which is a massive industry in the tech, a massive issue in the tech industry right now. If you just quit and you're debating doing it, just do it. Just start, see what happens, because in 6 months' time, you're probably going to look back and either go, I wish I'd started sooner, I can't believe actually how successful I'm doing, and I've already replaced my salary, and I realized I can do it with 2 clients, or you're in a situation where, hey, this really isn't for me, but at least I tried, and now I'm going to go and get another job anyway. But at least my expenses have been covered for 6 months. Like, there's no real risk of starting if you, like kind of what we alluded to earlier, if your back's against the wall, just start. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, and I think this easily segments into personal branding. Like if you're even thinking about it, then you need to start branding yourself like ASAP. I think because like that compounds over time, and that helps get that first client. And it makes that transition so much smoother. It's like having some type of like brand already established.
So let's talk about that with
going in the right direction.
With personal branding, how do you start then?
I've like once again, I hate to come back beat a dead horse, but getting in front of people and communicating with people outside of your bubble, right? Outside of your, I guess, your sphere. So going out, networking, meeting new people online and offline as well. And then also posting content. So there's lots of different strategies. You can go be guests on other people's podcasts. You can start a podcast. You can start a blog. You can start a Substack. Like there's so many different things that you can do to become a thought leader and authority and establish that. And if you get a 6-month head start before you leave your job on that, it's just going to make that transition so much smoother than cold starting it.
And that's the question I get is, hey, I wanna start an agency, but I have a full-time job. I want to get a couple of clients on the side, and I want to build a personal brand. But how do I build a personal brand without the company knowing I'm going to leave? If you're leaving in 6 months, who cares? Just do it. Just start. What are they going to do? Fire you because you posted on LinkedIn? It makes zero sense. Like, you're attracting business in the right way. And there is actually a tactful way to do this when you focus on education rather than, hey, come work for me. Hey, this is how I would do this if I were hired to run your accounts. This is my strategy with running LinkedIn accounts. This is my strategy for demand generation. There is a very clever way to do this where you can still have that impact with a personal brand without necessarily announcing, hey, I've got an agency. And then when you do, you build up an audience for 6 months. And that's what it takes. It takes 6 to 12 months to start getting any kind of real traction with this. And that's the investment in time you need to think about this. And that's where, again, best part for me, beginning of the year, look at it, say, hey, between January and July, do I get any traction with it? Have an exit plan. Have a strategy for getting out of there. Like, you don't have to sit and think about this the whole time. There are steps and actionable steps you can take to be able to make that leap into entrepreneurship without just going kind of cold turkey into it.
Oh man, you killed it, man! And we'll even give them one little sales game. So yeah, you start the personal brand, but while you're working at the place you're working, start to build your dream 100 list of who are going to be my 100 clients, and add those people to your orbit. Connect with them on LinkedIn with personalized like touches and engage with them on LinkedIn. Like there's nothing wrong with being a human. Like, you can't get fired or you won't be penalized for being a human or a good human being. And let them, consume your content. And then when you announce your business, boom, you have your dream 100's been consuming your content and engaging with you for 6 months. The more likely, the chance of you actually converting is substantially higher than you just starting then, right? So I love it, man. I think just doing it, just not having no fear. If you're going to do it.
Final point we'll make on this, and I'll actually take that a step further. If you are looking, you've got your list of Dream 100 accounts, and this is really getting into the weeds with some sales or starting agencies here, but you've got your 100 accounts, connect with them on LinkedIn. This can be when you've got a full-time job. Start a podcast where you interview your dream clients on the biggest problems they face with specific services that you want to offer. So if you want to start a marketing agency, go and connect with your 100 clients, and then go and invite them onto your podcast where you talk about B2B marketing, you talk about sales, you talk about this, because then you're building a relationship with them which is way more deep than the surface level sending messages on LinkedIn. Engaging with content is great. It's a great place to start. If you really want to have an impact with this, take that list, make 100 episodes of a podcast. Anyone listening thinking, oh, this is a lot. I do 2 to 3 a week. It doesn't take that long. You could do this in 6 months. Like, this is very possible to start off. Plus, not everybody's going to say yes. Maybe 30% of people say yes to this. Start to build out those couple of episodes, build those relationships. Now, when you decide you're going to make that jump, you can give them a call. You can send them an email. They already know exactly who you are. They probably know your life situation. They know things about you. You have a true personal relationship with them, and they're probably going to know other people in the industry that they can refer to you as well. So if they like you, they're going to send you business as well. And that, to me, is the critical part of launching a podcast successfully. When you initially start and go out on your own, that's what a lot of people miss out on, is the ability to use it as a sales tool.
Ding, ding, ding.
And
love it.
That's the knockout punch.
Full disclosure, I think the podcast generated like maybe 75% of our revenues have come from the podcast, directly or indirectly. Like, people we brought on, or people who introduced us to people from the pod. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. It's one thing. It's one of the regrets that I had from when I started Catalyst, is I didn't start a podcast interviewing VPs of marketing at Series C companies. That's something that I wish I'd started. Now I do this podcast to educate, because I have a business that's running very, very successfully, and this is more of a passion project for me. But that's one regret that I have when starting Catalyst, is that I didn't start the podcast earlier to be able to build those relationships. I chose to go and be a guest on podcasts like yourself. I went on a lot of podcasts, which was great for the personal branding, but it didn't necessarily connect me with exclusively the ICP of who I was going after, which would have been an easier way to build those relationships, when you first start off. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate the time that you've given us today for this call. Really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed the insight that you have, and I mean, there's just been a ton of value from your insight into starting businesses, specifically getting into sales. For anyone that's listening that does want to follow you, follow your travels, follow your personal brand, where's the best place for them to reach out to you?
Desmond L. Dixon on LinkedIn. I'm hard to miss.
That sounds good. Well, we're gonna make sure we've got all those links in the description, and we'll be sharing all the links to the website as well. But really appreciate you coming on the episode today, coming on the podcast. It was really a pleasure having you, and really looking forward to seeing what these next couple of months look like for you with traveling.
Sweet, man. Thanks for having me.
And that concludes this episode. If you have any questions, please head into the comments where you'll find all of the available links. If you have any questions on our sponsors, all the links will be in the description. Please stay tuned for the next episode.